The first Mongol invasions of Burma were a series of military conflicts between Kublai Khan's Yuan dynasty, division of the Mongol Empire, and the Pagan Empire that took place between 1277 and 1287. The invasions toppled the 250-year-old Pagan Empire, and the Mongol army seized Pagan territories in present-day Dehong, Yunnan and northern Burma to Tagarung. The invasions ushered in 250 years of political fragmentation in Burma and the rise of Taishan states throughout mainland Southeast Asia. The Mongols first demanded tribute from Pagan in 1271–72, as part of their drive to encircle the Song dynasty of China. When King Naradihipata refused, Emperor Kublai Khan himself sent another mission in 1273, again demanding tribute. It too was rejected. In 1275, the emperor ordered the Yunnan government to secure the borderlands in order to block an escape path for the Song, and permitted a limited border war if Pagan contested. Pagan did contest, but its army was driven back at the frontier by the Mongol army in 1277–78. After a brief lull, Kublai Khan in 1281 turned his attention to Southeast Asia, demanding tribute from Pagan, the Khmer Empire, Thai Viet and Kampa. When the Burmese king again refused, the emperor ordered an invasion of northern Burma. 2 dry season campaigns later, the Mongols had occupied down to Tagarung and Hanlin, forcing the Burmese king to flee to Lower Burma. The Mongols organized northern Burma as the province of Zhengmian. Ceasefire negotiations began in 1285, and ended with Naradihipata finally agreeing to submit in June 1286. The Burmese embassy, received by the emperor in Beijing in January 1287, agreed to a treaty that acknowledged the suzerainty of the Yuan dynasty or the Mongol Empire over the Pagan Empire, and annual payments in taxes to the Yunnan government in exchange for the evacuation of Mongol troops from northern Burma. But the treaty never really took effect as Naradihipata was assassinated in July 1287, and no authority who could honor the treaty emerged. The Mongol commander at Yunnan now deemed the imperial order to withdraw void, and ordered an invasion of central Burma. They may not have reached Pagan, and even if they did, after having suffered heavy casualties, they returned to Tagarung. The Pagan Empire disintegrated and anarchy ensued. The Mongols, who probably preferred the situation, did nothing to restore order in the next 10 years. In March 1297, they accepted the voluntary submission of King Kyor's War of Pagan, although he controlled little beyond the capital city of Pagan. But Kyor's War was overthrown 9 months later, and the Mongols were forced to intervene, leading to their second invasion in 1300–01. Marco Polo reported the first invasions in his travelogue, Ilmilian. The Burmese referred to the invaders as the Taruk. Today, the term Taruk refers to the Han Chinese instead. King Naradihipata is unkindly remembered in Burmese history as Taruk Pai Min. Background: Pagan and Dali. In the 13th century, the Pagan Empire, along with the Khmer Empire, was one of the 2 main empires in mainland Southeast Asia. For much of its history, Pagan's neighbor to the northeast was not China but the independent Dali kingdom and its predecessor Nangzhou, both with Dali as their capital city. Dali-based kingdoms were a power in their own right, at times allying themselves with the Tibetan Empire to their west and at other times with China's Tang and Song dynasties. Indeed, Nangzhou's mounted armies ventured deep into what is today Burma and may have been behind the founding of the medieval city of Pagan and the Pagan dynasty itself. Between the newly conquered Mongol territory and Pagan were a wide swath of borderlands stretching from present-day Dehong, Baroshan and Linkang prefectures in Yunnan as well as the Wa and Palong regions, which Pagan and Dali had both claimed and exercised overlapping spheres of influence. Then as now, the borderlands mostly consist of forbidding terrains of high mountain ranges, Mongol conquest of Dali. The Mongol Empire first arrived at the doorstep of the Pagan Empire in 1252 by invading the Dali kingdom in its attempt to outflank Song China. The Mongol armies captured the capital, Dali, on 7 January 1253, and went on to pacify much of the kingdom by 1257. The arrival of the Mongols did not initially upset the existing order at the borderlands, as the Mongols were intent on finishing off the Song. For the next dozen years, they consolidated their hold over the newly conquered land, which not only provided them with a base from which to attack the Song from the rear but also was strategically located on the trade routes from China to Burma and India. The Mongols set up military garrisons, manned mostly by Turkic-speaking Muslims from Central Asia, in 37 circuits of the former Dali kingdom. Decline of Pagan. By then, the Pagan Empire, despite outward appearances of calm, had been in long and slow decline since the early 13th century. The continuous growth of tax-free religious wealth had greatly reduced the tax base of the kingdom. The crown had lost resources needed to retain the loyalty of courtiers and military servicemen, inviting a vicious circle of internal disorders and external challenges. Although it was able to put down the first batch of serious rebellions in 1258–60 in South Arakan and Martabin, the decline continued. On the eve of the Mongol invasions, between 1 and 2/3 of Upper Burma's cultivable land had been donated to religion. The crown's ability to mobilize defenses was in serious jeopardy. Prelude to war. First Mongol mission. The period of calm for Pagan ended in the early 1270s. By then, the Song were on the ropes, and Emperor Kublai Khan, who officially founded the Yuan dynasty on 18 December 1271, sought to cut off the retreat of Song refugees in all directions. In Pagan's case, he had ordered the Mongol governor of Dali to tighten control of the borderlands, and in January 1271 to send a mission to Pagan to demand tribute. The tribute he demanded was nominal. Given his higher priority preoccupations elsewhere, the emperor was not looking to replace the regime at Pagan. At the border, the ruler of the War and Palong regions submitted to the Mongols. When the Mongol envoys led by Kedai Tuoyan showed up, the Pagan court led by Chief Minister Anandapayasi was well aware of the military power of the Mongols and advised King Naradihipata to use diplomacy. The king was furious at the demand and kept the Mongol envoys waiting for weeks. The court finally devised a compromise. The envoys were sent back without ever seeing the king. Accompanying them was a Burmese envoy who carried a letter expressing friendly sentiments and the Burmese king's wish to one day worship a Buddha tooth at Beijing. The king then promptly ordered an expedition, which retook the rebellious borderland regions in April 1272. The rebel leader Apai was brought back to Pagan. Dali relayed the news to Beijing but did not carry out any military action. Second Mongol mission at Beijing. Kublai Khan, who was preparing an invasion of Japan, decided against a war with Pagan, for the time being. On 3 March 1273, he sent a 4-member delegation led by an imperial ambassador, the first secretary to the Borderites, to Pagan. The delegation carried a letter from the emperor. The letter says, "If you have finally decided to fulfill your duties towards the All-Highest, send one of your brothers or senior ministers, to show men that all the world is linked with us, and enter into a perpetual alliance. This will add to your reputation, and be in your own interests, for if it comes to war, who will be the victor? Ponder well, O king, our words." This time, the Burmese king received the imperial envoys but still refused to submit. At any rate, the imperial envoys did not get back to Yunnan in due time. The newly formed Yunnan government sent another delegation to investigate the whereabouts of the delegation, but the delegation could not reach Pagan because of an ongoing rebellion en route. Mongol consolidation of borderlands. Meanwhile, in 1274, the former Dali kingdom was officially reorganized as the province of Yunnan, with Sayyid Ajul Shams al-Din Omar as governor. In May 1275, the governor sent a report to the emperor stating that the embassy had not returned, that the Burmese evidently had no intention of submitting, and that war was the only way forward. But the emperor rejected an outright invasion. Just coming off a disastrous Japanese campaign, the emperor was unwilling to commit the central government troops to what he considered a low-priority affair. He was now focused on delivering the final blow against the Song. The emperor ordered the Yunnan provincial army to secure the borderlands in order to block the escape path of the Song refugees. He also sanctioned a limited border war if Pagan contested the takeover. As planned, the Yunnan army proceeded to consolidate the borderlands in 1275–76. By 1277, at least one Burmese vassal state named Gold Teeth had submitted to the Mongols. Like in 1272, the Burmese government responded by sending an army to reclaim the rebellious state, but unlike in 1272, the Mongols had posted a sizable garrison there, though it was ultimately under Mongol command. Many of the officers and most of the soldiers of the garrison were Turkic-speaking peoples or people from the further west. Turks from Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv-in-Nishapur, but also captive soldiers from the Persian Khwarezmid Empire, the Kipchaks, and even Bulgars from the Lower Volga. Border War. What followed was a border war in 1277–78. It was reported mainly in the Yuan dynasty chronicle and the travelogue of Marco Polo. Although the Burmese chronicles have no record of the border war, a 1278 Burmese inscription mentions the army's defeat at Narsomnyan. The Mongol accounts of the border war contain certain errors of location and numbers, although the overall narrative is probably accurate. Battle of Narsomnyan. According to the Yuan dynasty chronicle and Marco Polo's accounts, a Burmese army invaded the Mongol territory of Gold Teeth, and was defeated by the Mongol army in April 1277. The battle took place either at the Vochang Valley or 110 kilometers southwest at Khangai, which the Burmese called Narsomnyan. The Yuan Chronicle reports that only 700 men defeated a Burmese army of 40,000 to 50,000 with 10,000 horses and 800 elephants. It also reports only one Mongol was killed in trying to catch an elephant. According to Marco Polo, the Mongol army consisted of 12,000 mounted archers, and the Burmese army numbered 60,000 men with 2,000 elephants, on each of which was set a tower of timber, well-framed and strong, and carrying from 12 to 16 well-armed fighting men. Even then, the 40,000 to 60,000 figures of the Burmese army strength were likely high estimates and may still be too high. The Mongols may have erred on the side of generosity, not to diminish their glory in defeating superior numbers. According to Marco Polo's account, in the early stages of the battle, the Turkish and Mongol horsemen took such fright of the sight of the elephants that they would not be got to face the foe, but always swerved and turned back, while the Burmese forces pressed on. But the Mongol commander Huduk did not panic. He ordered his troops to dismount, and from the cover of the nearby tree line, aim their bows directly at the advancing elephants. The Mongol archers' arrows threw the animals into such pain that they fled. Raid of Karungs, and the Mongol army pressed on after the monsoon season. In the following dry season of 1277–78, December 1277, a Mongol army of 3,800 led by Nasr al-Din, son of Gov. Sayyid Ajul, advanced to Karungsan, which defended the Barmo Pass. They occupied the fort and destroyed a large number of abandoned stockades, but they found the heat excessive and returned. Interlude. Despite the Mongol military success, the control of the borderlands remained contested. Pagan did not relinquish its claim to the frontier regions, and the Burmese, apparently taking advantage of Mongol preoccupations elsewhere, rebuilt their forts at Karungsan and Narsawny and later in 1278, posting permanent garrisons commanded by Indapayasi. But their control was short-lived. The Great Khan's attention turned to Southeast Asia once more in 1281. He had had mixed success. His vaunted forces had finished off the last of the Song in 1279 but had again failed to take Japan in 1281. That year, the Mongol emperor sent another mission to Pagan, demanding tribute yet again. The Burmese king was to send his 10 senior ministers accompanied by 1,000 cavalry officers to the emperor's court. At Pagan, Naradhipata deliberated with his court for an appropriate response but ultimately refused to submit. The Burmese court may have been counting on another limited border war, but the emperor now ordered an invasion of northern Burma. The Burmese king's troubles did not go unnoticed elsewhere in the kingdom. In the same year, a usurper named Wariru seized the southern port city of Martaban by killing its Pagan-appointed governor. Although the king's 3 sons were viceroys of the nearby Lower Burma cities, Promath and Dala, the king, preoccupied with much more serious threat in the north, did not take any action on Martaban. Throughout 1282, the Mongol command made preparations for the upcoming invasions of Kampa and northern Burma. The objective of the Burma campaign was to take over northern Burma but no further. The emperor did not sanction an attack on Pagan itself. At least one army consisted of 14,000 men of the erstwhile Persian Khwarezmid Empire under the command of Yalu Beg was sent to Yunnan to reinforce the Burma invasion force, which again was made up of Turks and other Central Asians. On the Burmese side, the king managed to raise an army, although given his low standing with his vassals, he probably could not have raised a large one. By mid-1283, a Burmese army led by generals Indapayasi and Yandapayasi was deployed at a fort at Narsawny. Invasion. Battle of Narsawny. The invasion began on the 22nd of September 1283. Prince Sankuda was the commander-in-chief of the invasion force. His deputies were Vice-Governor Taipn and Commander Agan Tegan. The Mongol armies marched to the border in 2 columns. One column advanced along the Taeping River using over 200 boats, the other proceeded by land and joined the first column at the Burmese fort at Narsawny. The Burmese chronicles report an overwhelming number of Mongol forces laying siege to the fort, although their numbers are greatly exaggerated. The Burmese withstood the siege for over 2 months, but the fort fell on the 3rd of December 1283. Invasion of northern Burma. The defeat at Narsawny broke the back of Burmese defences. The Burmese army lost several thousand men as well as senior commanders. Karungsan, the next fort in line, fell just 6 days later on the 9th of December 1283. The Mongol sources say that the Burmese lost 10,000 men at Karungsan. The Mongol armies pushed farther south into the Irrawaddy Valley. They took the ancient Burmese capital of Tagarung, about 380 kilometers north of Pagan, on the 5th of February 1284. There, the invaders paused their advance. They found the heat of the searing Irrawaddy Valley excessive, and evacuated Tagarung, allowing the Burmese to return to Tagarung on the 10th of May 1284. But the Mongol army renewed their offensive in the following dry season. They retook Tagarung, and defeated another Burmese stand south of Tagarung, probably near Hanlin, on the 26th of January 1285, opening the way to Pagan, about 270 kilometers south. After the defeat, the king panicked, and fled to Lower Burma. The evacuation proved premature. The Mongol forces did not advance on Pagan as it was not part of their invasion plan. The country fell into chaos. In Lower Burma, the king found himself isolated, let alone plan a counterattack. Although his sons ruled the key Lower Burma ports, the king did not trust any of them, and he and his court settled at Herlegia, west of Proma. Without the full support of his sons, the presence of the king and his small army impressed no one. The governor of Pegu revolted that same year. The king managed to send 2 small expeditions to Pegu, but they both failed. Now, the entire eastern half of Lower Burma was in open revolt. Peace negotiations. Ceasefire. Given his precarious position, Naradi Hipatid decided to buy time, and sue for peace with the Mongols. In November-December 1285, the king ordered his generals in Andapayasi and Mahabho to enter into ceasefire negotiations. The Mongol commanders at Hanlin, who had organized northern Burma as a protectorate named Zhengmian, agreed to a ceasefire but insisted on a full submission. They repeated their 1281 demand that the Burmese king send a formal delegation to the emperor. The two sides had reached a tentative agreement by the 3rd of March 1286, which calls for a full submission of the Pagan Empire, and central Burma to be organized as the province of Mianzhong. After a long deliberation, the king agreed to submit, but wanted the Mongol troops to withdraw. In June 1286, he sent an embassy led by Shin Ditha Pamauk, a learned monk, to the emperor's court. Treaty of Beijing. In January 1287, the embassy arrived at Beijing, and was received by the Yuan emperor. The Burmese delegation formally acknowledged Mongol suzerainty of their kingdom, and agreed to pay annual tribute tied to the agricultural output of the country. In exchange, the emperor agreed to withdraw his troops. For the emperor, the Burma campaign was the only bright spot. His other Southeast Asian expeditions had gone badly. He did not want to invest more troops to pacify the rest of the kingdom. He preferred a vassal ruler. The Burmese embassy arrived back at Holegia in May 1287, and reported the terms to the king. But the agreement broke down a month later. In late June, the defeated king and his small retinue left their temporary capital for Pagan. But on the 1st of July 1287, the king was captured en route and assassinated by his second son Thithathu, the viceroy of Burma. Anarchy ensued. Each region in the country which had not revolted broke away. No successor to Naradi Hipata, who could honor and enforce the terms of the Treaty of Beijing, emerged. Indeed, a king would not emerge until May 1289.